It's time to get ugly.
You're listening to Ruscin and Zach.
We're back here on Ruscin and Zach. 26 minutes till the hour. And good to go to the Williams Tractor Hotline now and visit with Bret McMurphy from the Stadium Network, college football insider, joining us here on Ruscin and Zach. Bret, how are you?
Good afternoon, guys. How are you doing?
We're doing good. Appreciate the time today. So as you've been making calls and talking to people in the business today, what are kind of the latest on where things stand in terms of, I know the SEC, it looks like, is down to possibly 2 dates of reopening facilities, it looks like.
Well, they're considering having student athletes go back to the campuses at that time, but there's no definitive answers on anything. Everybody's got a lot of different plans. They want to put them in place, but until we know exactly when everybody can get the all clear to come back, and that could be different times for different conferences. That could be different times for schools within the same conference. We really don't know. The good news is there's a lot of different options that they'll put into place just as soon as they know when they can move forward. So obviously everybody's really eager for that to happen. But I still think we're, a few weeks off until we will definitively know, what kind of shape and form that college football will take place this year.
I saw your tweet earlier from Gordon G. at West Virginia University. It just seems like there's 130 individuals going in 130 different directions, and everybody's got a plan or at least an idea. Is there at some point, are the Power 5 commissioners or presidents going to get together and come up with a plan on their own for those 5 conferences, maybe and a Notre Dame or a BYU, and they're going to move forward as, has been rumored, 64 teams kind of breaking off from everybody else and going and doing their own thing, at least for 2020?
Well, the Power 5 commissioners have a daily call at 10:30 Eastern every morning. So they're on a call daily discussing whatever the latest information they have is, going through different proposals, options, different things like that. All of these schools that are saying, yeah, we plan to be back, we intend to be back, they also plan to play the NCAA basketball tournament, and that got canceled. So, a lot of schools' enrollments are down. That's no shock because of the uncertainty surrounding everything. A lot of, students and or parents are hesitant to have their kids go back to college, especially to pay tuition fees if you're just going to do online classes or if you're just going to be part online, part on campus. So that's why all these schools are coming out and saying, yeah, we plan on being back, we intend to be back. But, everyone's saying they plan to be, they hope to be, and I understand that. But, the reality is we're not going to know for another month or maybe 2 months. And until then, they're planning for when they know they can move forward. And, maybe if the SEC presidents decide, next week and say, hey, our students are coming back on this date, that's great. The biggest challenge, I think, that hasn't been resolved, and certainly they're working on it, is, what happens when somebody tests positive? With Rudy Gobert in the NBA, it shut the entire league down. Or do we have a different attitude now that a positive test, that person will be quarantined, the people he's been in contact with will be quarantined? I don't have those answers, and I don't know if that's going to be a school-by-school decision, or will the SEC, for example, will they have guidelines and protocols that all their universities will have to follow? That's kind of an unknown, and I think that's probably going to be the biggest challenge, is to figure all that out. And hopefully they can, and if they can, we'll have football. And with all the uncertainty surrounding college football, there is one certainty: this will be a football season unlike any other in our lifetime.
No doubt about it. Bret McMurphy, college football insider, with us here on Ruscin and Zach. I think it's both sides of this are frustrating to me anyway, Bret, when I hear places canceling things 4, 5, 6 months out. But I'm also frustrated when I hear people saying definitively things about 4, 5, 6 months out, because the truth is we just don't know anything about what anything's going to look like that far down the line.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, California, university system, which, includes Cal, UCLA, San Diego State, San Jose State, and Fresno State as far as the FBS football programs. Their chancellors have said, look, we're going to do online classes only in the fall. But yet those universities have said, hold on a minute, we haven't decided anything yet. We may still have some students on campus. I remember when Rudy Gobert tested positive and things started getting canceled. I remember shortly, it was within 2 days at the most, that the NCAA announced the College World Series would be canceled. And I remember thinking at that point, we're in March. How are you canceling something in June? Let's let this play out. Well, obviously, that was the right decision. But I agree. I don't see why the big rush out west to cancel stuff that's several months off. But I also agree with you. You can't definitively say, hey, we're going to be back at that time also. We just need to wait a little bit more. People don't like to wait. I understand that. They want answers yesterday. But we've got to wait and see till we have more information. I mean, it looks like the country's progressing better, with all this. Of course, it's different in different parts of the country. What will it look like in a month? Will it be more improved? Hopefully so. Or will it be worse? I mean, we're not going to know.
Doug Ducey, the governor of Arizona, and Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, have opened up their states to professional sports, college sports. I think for the professional sports, it offers a sort of a soft landing spot for maybe Major League Baseball or the NFL. But does that play at all into maybe a college opening up dormitories for, and I'm thinking specifically of a school like UCLA, where the state of California is in flux? Could they move somewhere or move to an Arizona State University and sort of house their athletes there and participate in the football season?
I mean, from all the athletic directors and commissioners I've talked to, they stress that everything and anything is on the table. But I think as far as college athletics, that would be probably one of the most unlikely scenarios because, again, you've got people that are against the student athletes only going back on their own campus, even if the general students can't go back and competing in athletics. So now you're taking that a step further where you're just shipping the student athletes to another state. I think that's probably unlikely, but look, I would have thought a lot of things that we're talking about now had no chance of becoming a reality. So it is a possibility. I think in that scenario, it's more likely that UCLA just won't be able to have a football season if that's the case.
We're talking with Bret McMurphy, college football insider here on Ruscin and Zach. Another part of this that I think that involves the planning is what if you're able to play, your league's able to play, but you have a non-conference team that can't make the trip to your stadium for a game. Arkansas is supposed to open up with Nevada, for example, on September the 5th. How are athletic directors preparing for maybe other games that they try to get with a school that's maybe closer in terms of regionality? Are there plans for like backup games, I guess you could say?
Well, they're definitely having these conversations, but certainly nobody's signing a contract,
right.
At Arkansas or Nevada to, hey, let's go ahead and reschedule. And, Arkansas is now going to play, Oklahoma State or Arkansas State or somebody much closer. It is a very real possibility, though, that, I don't think we're going to have all schools and all conferences back playing. I don't think that's realistic. I think you're going to have probably in all 10 conferences, you're going to have, a couple, 2 or 3, maybe more that teams in a specific conference that can't play. Because of that, ADs have told me that some conferences are actually having preliminary discussions on, look, if we can't get all of our games in within our own conference, maybe we can do a home and home series in the same year with the conference opponent. We'll take the SEC. What if you've got six schools from the East that can play, but you only have 4 in the West? Well, now the West needs to get these additional games. Where are they going to get them from? I mean, you redo the whole schedule. I mean, there's a million different models, but that could be a possibility where you could see, Arkansas could have a home and home with another SEC opponent if you had enough schools within the league that couldn't play. And the point you brought up about the non-conference games, I think that's probably why we probably end up with all the conferences playing kind of a conference-only schedule. Maybe they allow one additional non-conference game for everybody to keep alive, the in-state rivalries that are not in conference, like a Florida, Florida State, South Carolina, Clemson, maybe BYU, Utah. But I think it's very realistic. We're going to have a full 12-game season, including the non-conference opponents this year.
You mentioned, if they were to go to the only non-conference slate, you mentioned BYU. I think of like teams like Notre Dame, teams that are in that independent bracket. Where Jack Swarbrick's been way out front on this, talking about how they'll be able to put a schedule together. Where does that leave a school like BYU, who doesn't maybe necessarily have the national draw that a school like Notre Dame does, where Notre Dame could go in and say, we've got the ACC contract and a couple other schools? Where does it leave those schools in the independents if you go all conference?
Yeah, well, I talked to ACC Commissioner John Swafford, and he basically told me that, look, if they decide to go a conference-only model, that certainly if Notre Dame wanted their assistance, they would help them. So Notre Dame could get their 9 games just by playing ACC schools. They would make that work. But you're right, as far as BYU, they'd be in a difficult decision. There's, including Notre Dame and BYU, there's 7 independent schools. Obviously, those are the 2 heavy hitters, but you've also got, Army's an independent. I've talked to sources at some of the independent schools, and they said that they've already had discussions about potentially playing home-and-home series against other independents. I talked to Navy AD Chet Gladchuk. He said, we're playing Army, whether that's a conference game or not. So you've got people, working on these different things, but again, ultimately they don't know, what shape or form this season's gonna look like. But yeah, you're right. The independents would really get hit the hardest. And I had ADs from conferences that brought this up. They said, look, if we're supposed to play an independent and we cancel that game and reschedule it on a same date with a conference opponent, are we responsible for the buyout? You can't just say, well, we're not playing because of the virus. Well, yeah, you're playing another opponent. So now you get into all the logistics of who's going to pay the buyouts, or, certainly the schools that cancel the games will say, look, we'll play in a couple of years. We'll make it up to you. I talked to a number of ADs, said if somebody cancels a game with us, we want the money now. We'll worry about a game down the road some other time. So that's a lot of the challenges that all these guys are faced with. And, you guys asked some great questions, and as soon as I answer your question, I have 10 more questions for myself. So just imagine if you're trying to deal with all these different scenarios, and we've covered probably 1/100th of all the different scenarios and challenges that they're going to have. So we'll just, I know people hate to hear this, but we just got to wait and see what happens.
We're talking with Bret McMurphy, the Stadium Network, college football insider here on Ruscin and Zach. Oh, here's another hypothetical. Does this move us closer down the road to a college football commissioner, if you will, having one voice speak for the sport, or is that just not possible with the regionality of the different conferences in this particular sport?
Yeah, it's not possible, not necessarily because of the regionality, but because you've got the 5 Power 5 commissioners, and you mentioned Jack Swarbrick at Notre Dame, the athletic directors. Those guys right now, they basically, in a sense, they run college football. So now you're going to have somebody who's a commissioner, and now Sankey has a boss to report to, or John Swafford or Bob Bowlesley. Now they have somebody that's over them. That's simply not going to happen. These conference commissioners do what's best for their conferences. That's their number one goal. And then certainly their number 2 goal is if they can do something for the good of college athletics, college sports, they will do that. But make no mistake, their number 1 goal, their number 1 priority is to worry about the health, safety, and obviously financial security of their individual conferences. So that's why, as much as I think it would be good to have a commissioner for college football, I don't think we'll ever see one.
Gut feeling. Are they going to get this thing started September 5th, August 31st? Are we going to a month? Are we going to play a shortened season? You talk to as many people as, you're as qualified to answer this as anybody, the number of people that you talk to. If you're going to put $10 down on when we're going to start this thing, where do you think it will finally start and end?
I think they want to try to start September 5th. There's actually 7 games on August 29th, the week before, including Navy and Notre Dame in Ireland, which I don't think anybody in their right mind thinks they'll play that game in Ireland. But according to both schools, it's still scheduled, so we'll see. I think they'll kind of look at it and, say, hey, if for that to happen, you've got to have the student athletes practicing by July 15th. If that's realistic, then I think they'll try to go on September 5th. I don't think everybody will be able to do that, so then they will have to reach a decision. As far as, do we start now with only a few conferences, or do we maybe wait a month and try to get everybody involved?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be – I saw one scenario, Brett, where you could have maybe some leagues play in the fall and then have some leagues wait till January and start. Is that I mean, I guess everything's a possibility at this point, but
I think really the as far as playing in the spring, that's kind of viewed as a last resort. If we can't play in the fall, then they would try to play in the spring. Bob Bowlesby, the Big 12 commissioner, told me, look, there are people that are in favor of just right now, let's just push everything to the spring. Let's schedule it for the spring, and we'll go from there. But he's under the, he prefers to, look, if we can start in September, if we can start in October, let's start then and play and get these games in as much as we can. And then if it gets disrupted, it gets disrupted. But, he said there's no guarantee if we just wait till after the Christmas break to get going that it may be worse. It may flare up again. The one thing to count on is because of how critical and important the revenue is for these college football programs to these athletic departments and universities. Again, if the health and safety of the student athletes can be guaranteed, they will figure out a way to play, whether it's 8 games, 9 games, 10 games, whether it's starting in October, ending in May, whatever the situation is. That's how critical it is to all these universities and athletic departments.
At the end of the day, we almost forget that these are businesses, and the A10, the A10 announced today the reduction in their schedules and some of their non-revenue sports by 25%. Do you foresee that being more the case where maybe just in the 2020, the 2021 year, maybe into 21-22, where even the Power 5 schools start reducing schedules and tournaments and travel in some of their non-revenue sports, lacrosse, baseball, those sorts of sports?
Yeah, I think that's a reality, because these moves are made now without even knowing the impact of football. Obviously, the Atlantic 10 doesn't have the impact of football like the other conferences, but the Mid-American Conference, this week, basically canceled all their conference tournaments for their non-football and basketball sports. They also reduced their men's basketball tournament from all 12 teams making it down to 8 teams, so that cut a day off the tournament schedule. So, I think you could see some similar decisions by the Power 5 schools, but, to be honest, right now they're knee-deep in football, and I think once they get a grip on that and figure that out, then I'm sure they'll make some changes. Maybe we won't see as many non-conference games for the Olympic sports. Maybe we won't see teams traveling across country to play in these different neutral site tournaments, and you see more regional scheduling. I know that's something Conference USA has talked about when you've got a team in UTEP that's almost 2,000 miles away from ODU over in Virginia. How much sense does it make for those guys to play? Maybe they should just play teams more in their area.
Yeah. Bret McMurphy on Twitter, Bret_McMurphy, College Football Insider, Stadium Network. Thank you so much, sir, for the time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Brett and all our guests join us here on the Williams Tractor Hotline.